I have started ISO 45001 lead auditor training, which is an occupational health and safety management system. I hope everyone, whoever is working in any organization, their organizations are certified for ISO 45001, which is the occupational health and safety management system. And earlier it was, as we know, that OSHA's 18001 2007. So that was replaced by 45001. As you know that I have started already 45001 training for the lead auditor, and first part I have already uploaded. If you haven't gone through that part, please go through that part before you start this part. Okay, because if you will start from this part, it won't be easy for you to understand the concept and how we have to follow, because in first part I have shared you very crucial information regarding health and safety management system, and I have shared some documents also and how to maintain those documents, and those documents are very crucial also. Okay, so we will start our training. As you know that I will cover two standard in this training: ISO 45001, which is a lead auditor training, which is an occupational health and safety management system. Okay, once we done through this training, I will cover also ISO 19011 2018, which is a standard for guidelines for auditing management systems. How you have to conduct an audit, whether you are conducting internal audit, external audit, or second party audit. How you have to conduct the audit step by step, all the information I'll share with you. So let's start our training. As you know that we have covered our topic till clause number 5.4, but we haven't completed clause number 5.4. So I left the training last time till I covered last time till here. Okay, obstacles and barriers regarding consultation process. Now after that, so this clause is for consultation and participation of workers, how we have to do the consultation with the workers, and how we have to make sure that workers are getting participate in health and safety management system. After that, option D, emphasize the consultation of non-managerial workers on the flowing. When you are doing the consultation, you have to make sure that not only the managerial level people, not only the supervisor level people, you have to make sure that non-managerial workers, it means cleaners, the workers they are at the down level, at the base level, those workers also need to be included in the consultation process. So when you are consulting with the workers, you have to make sure that determining the needs and expectation of interested parties. As you know that in clause number 4.2, I have asked you to identify the interested parties, your internal and external interested parties. So when you are doing the consultation, that time you have consultation and worker participation, that time you have to consider the needs and expectation of interested parties. After then, stabilizing the OHS policy, see 5.2. So in 5.2, clause number 5.2, we have discussed about the OHS policy, occupational health and safety policy, and the requirements that we have to follow when we are creating, updating, and implementing occupational health and safety policies. So those also need to be considered when you are stabilizing, preparing any policy. You have to consultate with the workers also. Assigning organizational roles, responsibilities, and authorities as applicable, see 5.3. In 5.3, we discuss about the organizational roles and responsibilities. Whenever you are making any JD, job description, for a particular department, for a particular post, for position, so at that time, you have to consider the workers also, their level of knowledge, their level of education, experience, and you have to consultate with them whether they are able to do those roles and responsibilities or not. Not just simply you have to write down any JD and you are writing high level of roles and responsibilities for any down level staff and they don't know what is the meaning of those. So these things will not gonna work. So whenever you are creating any job description for your employees, so you have to make sure that what are their roles, what they are capable of, what is their knowledge, what is their experience, and whether they need any extra training to fulfill these roles and requirements, responsibilities. Now, determining how to fulfill legal requirements and other requirements. See 6.1.3. We will go through that one after this training. Sorry, after this clause. So when you are doing the consultation part, you have to make sure that you are fulfilling the legal requirements which is required by local law and international law also. Okay. After that, stabilizing OHS objectives and planning to achieve them. Whenever you are setting some KPIs, setting some objectives and targets, and you have some plan to achieve them. So what you have to do, you have to make sure that you are doing the consultation before setting any objectives or any KPIs, because the workers are the main people, main asset, they're going to achieve those KPIs. If without consulting, you are setting some KPIs which is not like realistic to achieve them, it's not going to help you, and you are not going to achieve those KPIs without any help of workers. So somehow you need the help of the workers, not somehow, most of the time you need the help of down level staff help. Only then you're going to achieve the KPIs. So consultation is very, very important whenever you are setting any KPIs. After then, determining applicable controls of outsourcing, procurement, and contractors. So when you are determining applicable controls for outsourcing, suppose you are doing some work in your company, but you don't have any proper like resources to perform that certain task or services. So what you are doing, you are outsourcing that service. So let's say that you are giving the painting work to external parties. So when you are giving these services outsource, or you are getting something from the external parties, you have to make sure that before you do the consultation and you participate the workers also, you have to make sure that workers also participate in this process to make sure that how to control the risk and hazards related to outsourcing, procurement, and contractors. After that, determining what needs to be monitored, measured, and evaluated. When you are preparing any process for the audit or inspection, at that time you have to mention that what you want to monitor, how you going to measure it, and how you going to evaluate it. That we're going to look in clause number 9.1, which is for audit. After then, planning, stabilizing, implementing, and maintaining an audit program 9.2.2. As I said, we have to make a process for audit program. How you going to do the audit, what is the frequency of audit, who is in the audit team, all these things you have to maintain a SOP. When you are maintaining SOP for audit, you have to do the consultation and you have to make sure that workers are participating in this program, audit program. Ensuring continual improvement 10.3. When you are setting some objectives and targets and you are making some plan for the continual improvement of your process, occupational health and safety management system, or your organization, that time you have to make sure that workers also are getting involved in this process, because they're going to help you for continual improvement of occupational health and safety management system or your business. Emphasize the participation of non-managerial workers. So the first part we have consultation. Now this is the second part, we have emphasize the participation of non-managerial workers. How to participate? Determining the mechanisms for their consultation and participation. Mechanism means how you gonna involve them. What is the process you have? What are the different ways you gonna try? What are the different ways you gonna use to make sure that workers are participating in consultation process? And if you need any views from the workers, they're gonna give you views. Okay. Then identifying hazards and assessing risk and opportunities. Whenever you are doing any risk assessment, the risk assessment, you're going to identifying the hazards and assess the risk also, and you're going to apply the control measures. So in this complete process, you have to make sure that you are involving the workers, you are consulting with them, and you are making sure that they are also participating in this process, because they are the main person who's going to give you very important and crucial information for the risk assessment, because all the time they are the one who's going to use the process, equipment, services, etc. So they are the best people who want to give you very crucial information to control the hazard and risk. Then determining actions to eliminate hazard and reduce OHS risk. Once you do the risk assessment, you have to apply the control measure. When you are applying the control measure, that time make sure workers are there in this process, risk assessment process, so they can give you the actual hazard control plan. Okay, and different ways and different ideas can be get from the workers. Determining competence and requirement trainings and training evaluation training. When you are determining the competence, you are checking the competence level of the workers. That time you have to consultate with the worker, you need to participate. You have to make sure that workers are participating in the training programs also, and they're going to tell you that what kind of training they need and how you going to evaluate them. Okay, so these are the different ways you have to use to make sure that workers are getting proper training and the training they required for the particular task, and to make sure that they are getting the sufficient and adequate training to avoid any hazard and risk. Then we have determining what needs to be communicated and how will be done. For the communication, we have the specific clause 7.4, clause number 7.4. So it will tell you that what needs to be communicated, how it's going to be communicated, when need to be communicated. So all these requirements will be there. So that will tell you. Then we have determining control measures and their effective implementation and use. So that when you are setting the control measures for the hazards and risk, so their effectiveness of implementation and use, whether they are effective to control the hazards or not, you have to check them also. How you going to check? You're going to check through the audit, health and safety survey also. You're going to check them through the inspection, okay, and communication with the workers, consultation with the workers. So these are the options you have. Then we have the investigating accidents and non-conformities and determining corrective actions. See clause number 10.2. It will tell you this one. So when you are investigating accidents and non-conformities, that time also you have to make sure that you are involving the workers also. Okay. And when you are determining the corrective actions also, you have to take the views from the workers also. You have to make sure that workers are getting participate in investigation, non-conformities and determining corrective actions. So these are the requirements of audit. Sorry, ISO 45001. So whenever you are making the process for communication and consultation process, you have to make sure that you are involving the workers for all these points which I have discussed with you so far. Note. So it's saying that emphasize the consultation and participation of non-managerial workers is intended to apply to persons carrying out their work activities, but is not intended to exclude, for example, managers who are impacted by work activities or other factors in the organization. So the clause saying that you have to include the workers, non-managerial workers, in consultation and participation process. But it's not saying that you have to exclude the managerial level, whose knowledge and information is very crucial in the organizations. Okay, so you have to include the managerial level also, and you have to include the non-managerial level also. The clause does not saying that you have to exclude, you have to include both. It is recognized that the provision of training at no cost to workers and the provision of training during working hours, where possible, can remove significant barriers to workers' participation. So it's saying that whenever you are providing any training, you should not charge back to the workers. And when you are providing the training and that training needs some time, so that time should not affect the work hours. And if worker need to attend the training 1 hour or 2 hours, worker should not work extra 1 hour or 2 hours. So those 1 hour or 2 hours should be taken from the work. So that was the clause number 5. Now we will start clause number 6, which is planning. So still we are in the PDCA cycle. As you know that P as a planning. So we have the clause number 4, 5, 6 and 7. So these three clauses, 4 clauses, 4, 5, 6 and 7. These 4 clauses will come under P, plan. So we have the clause number 6, which is a planning. So in the planning section, what we have to do in clause number 6? In clause number 6, we have to subclause is asking action to address risk and opportunities. When planning for the OHS management system, the organization shall consider the issues referred in the context of the organization, the requirements referred to in 4.2 interested parties, and the scope of its occupational health and management system. So when you are planning occupational health and safety management system, so that time you need to consider the context of the organization, internal and external issues, okay, interested parties, and the scope of your business. What are the business you are doing? What are the things you are producing? So those things need to be considered. Give assurance that the OHS management system can achieve its intended outcomes, prevent or reduce undesired effects, achieve continual improvement. When determining the risk and opportunity for the occupational health and management system and its intended outcomes that need to be addressed, the organization shall take into account hazards. 6.1.2.1, we will see that one, OHS risk and other risk, OHS opportunities and other opportunities, legal requirements and other requirements that need to consider. The organization and in its planning process shall determine and assess the risk and opportunities that are relevant to the intended outcomes of the OHS management system associated with changes in the organization, its process, or the OHS management system in the case of plan changes. Permanent or temporary, this assessment shall be undertaken before the change is implemented. The organization shall maintain documented information on risk and opportunities. So earlier, if you will see that there was only the risk register. Now, this new ISO 45001, it is not only asking the risk and the hazards, it's asking the opportunities also, because every risk, every hazard is an opportunity. That I will show you how. The process and actions needed to determine and address its risk and opportunities, see 1.2.2, 6.1.2 to 6.1.4. To the extent necessary to have confidence that they are carried out as planned. So these are the requirements for clause number 6.1. Now we have the 6.1.2, hazard identification, assessment of risk and opportunities. So hazard identification and assessment of risk and opportunities. So as you know that this clause 6.1.2 is purely based on risk assessment. As you know that there are 5 steps for the risk assessment. The first step we have the hazard identification. So hazard identification, when you are identifying the hazard, these are the things you need to consider. The first step. The organization shall establish, implement, and maintain a process for hazard identification that is ongoing and proactive. The process shall take into account but not be limited to. So you have to make a SOP for the hazard risk assessment or risk and opportunity register. There should be one process. So it is a requirement. When you are doing the hazard assessment, identifying the hazards, these are the things you need to consider, but it is not limited. How work is organized, you have to check the social factors also, which is increasing the risk in the business, including workload, working hours. So working hours, how it's going to affect you? The people who's working at daytime compared to night shift, the night shift people, they have the higher risk. So these things also need to consider. Victimization, harassment, and bullying. So these are the things also need to consider. If you have gone through the NEBOSH IZC training or NEBOSH diploma training, there are some specific psychological related training also, which is considering these risks, victimization, harassment, and bullying also. So those are the hazards also need to be included in the this risk assessment. Then leadership and the culture of the organization. So what is the health and safety culture in the organization? That also need to consider, because somehow that is going to affect the health and safety in the organization. Routine and non-routine activities and situations, including hazards arising from. So routine and non-routine activities also need to be included. Infrastructure, equipment, materials, substances, and the physical condition of the workplaces, product and service design, research, development, testing, production, assembly, construction, service delivery, maintenance, and disposable. So these are the things also need to consider when you are identifying the hazard. After that, you have to consider the human factors also. Sometimes human factors also, they are creating the new risk. Human factors means like teenager, they are working, okay, and young people, they are working, so they are at the higher risk. So these things also need to consider. Pregnant women, they are working, so they have the higher risk also. How the work is performed, how you are performing the work. Let's say that instead of water-based paint, you are using the solvent-based paint, so that creating the higher risk. So these things need to consider. Past relevant incidents, internal and external to the organization, including emergencies and their causes. So when you are identifying the hazard, go through the documentation process also. If there is any relevant incident or accidents also, internal or external, include them also in your hazard identification. And as per the hazard identification, define the risk and define the control measure also to control the risk. Potential emergency situation like fire, flood, and all these things need to be included also. People include in consideration of those with access to the workplace and their activities, including workers, contractors, visitors, and other persons. So people also need to be included. Regular employees and contractors, visitors, and other persons also. Those in the vicinity of the workplace who can affected by the activities of the organization. If you are working any organization and you have the neighbors, you have to include the neighbors also. Maybe they are getting affected by your work and the services. Maybe the nearby you have the school, you have to include them also. Maybe nearby you have the hospital. They are also going to affected by your service or work. So you need to include them also in your hazard identification process. Workers at the location not under the direct control of the organization. Worker at a location not under the direct control of the organization. Who are they? They are at a location, but they are not the direct control of the organization. Means the third party service. They are not at the direct control of the organization, but they are the contractor and they are the third party service. They are handling them. Those also need to be included. Other issues including consideration of, so other issues also you need to consider the design of work areas, how it is designed, maybe the confined space, that also need to check. Processes, installations, machinery and equipment, operating procedures, work organizations, including their adaptation to the needs and capabilities of the workers involved. You need to check the capabilities of the workers who is involving in those processes, because those also can get affected by these equipments and process. Situations occurring in the vicinity of the workplace caused by work-related activities under the control of the organization. When you are identifying the hazards, you don't have to consider the other people they are affecting by your work. You need to consider yourself also, how you are going to affected by other people work, your neighbor works. Maybe beside your company, there is one another company who is producing toxic, any high toxic level of chemical. So if they don't have the proper control, they're going to affect your employees and health risk will increase. So those also need to be considered. Situations not controlled by the organization and occurring in the vicinity of the workplaces that can cause injury and ill health to persons in the workplace. As I said, actual or proposed changes in organization, operations, process, activities, and the occupational health and safety management system. So when there is any changes in the organizations, management, how you gonna manage the changes, those changes, whether they are creating some hazard or risk. So those changes also need to be included in the risk assessment. Changes in knowledge of and information about hazards. So if there is any changes, how those changes gonna affect you, affect your organization. Maybe in process, like production department, chemical production department, then there is one engineer, and suddenly that engineer lost the job, or suddenly that engineer got terminated by the departments. Now that engineer was highly capable and very knowledgeable, so you lose the knowledge in that particular department who was controlling the risk and the hazard in that department. Now you are hiring the other people. That other person, the engineer, chemical engineer you hired, he is not that much capable, not knowledgeable. So now what will happen? In this department now, the risk will increase because the risk and the hazard was controlled earlier by the knowledgeable people. So when you are losing any person who has more knowledgeable and he is capable to control the hazard and risk, so these things also need to be considered during the changes, organization change, process change, or people when they are changing. Now, the assessment of OHS risk and other risks to OHS management system. The organization shall establish, implement, and maintain a process too. So you have to implement a process, SOP, procedure, to deal with. Assess OHS risk from the identified hazard. How you going to assess the risk while taking into account the effectiveness of the existing controls. And you have to check that if there is any existing control is there, and those existing control, whether they are effective or not, and how much they are effective, that you have to check. Determining and assess the other risk related to the establishment, implementation, operation, and maintenance of the OHS management system. So you should have a process to determine and assess the other risk also, which is related to the establishment, implementation, operation, and maintenance of the OHS management system. Organizational methodologies and criteria for the assessment of OHS risk shall be defined with respect to their scope, nature, and timing to ensure they are proactive rather than reactive and are used in systematic way. Documented information shall be maintained and retained on the methodology and criteria. So when you are making any risk assessment and you are identifying the risk, that risk assessment should be maintained as a documented information. It means you should have a documents and that should be maintained also. And you have to keep a record also. Okay. And it should be communicated also with the team members and the workers also. Assessment of OHS opportunities and other opportunities for the OHS management system. Now that was the risk. Now we have to talk about the opportunities. The organization shall establish, implement, and maintain a process to assess. So you should maintain a process. It means SOP also. So you can combine this SOP opportunities for the risk assessment and risk assessment and opportunities to improvement. OHS opportunities to enhance OHS performance while taking into account planned changes to the organization, its policies, its processes, or its activities. So when you are making a SOP or process for opportunities for improvements, that time you can consider the organization, its policies, its process, and its activities. And opportunities to adapt work organization, work environment to workers, opportunities to eliminate hazards and reduce OHS risk. So these you need to consider, and other opportunities for improving the OHS management system that you can consider. Note, OHS risk and opportunities can result in other risk and other opportunities for the organization. So when you are identifying occupational health and safety risk, so that risk can work as opportunities, and that opportunity can result in a risk also. So it has a two-way. It is not always the risk and it is not always the opportunity. It could be risk and it could be opportunity. Now, determination of legal requirements and other requirements. So when you are identifying when you are conducting the risk assessment, you have to consider the legal requirements and other requirements also. The organization shall establish, implement, and maintain a process to determine and have access to up-to-date legal requirements and other requirements that are applicable to its hazards, occupational health and safety risk, and management system. What you can do, you can maintain a legal register. I will suggest you. So when you are maintaining a legal register, in those legal register, you can mention all the legal requirement for the company wise, international legal standard, which is affecting your business, like fire code, environmental health and safety management system, occupational health and safety management system, any local requirements. So all those things you can maintain in a risk register, legal register. Determine how these legal requirements and other requirements apply to the organization and what needs to be communicated. So when you are making a legal register, you can mention one separate column in that legal register that what are these requirements and how they can apply to the organization, your organization. Let's say that there is one uh, human resource law that the worker should not work more than 8 hours. So it is a law, labor law. So how it's going to affect your business? It's going to affect your business in a way that workers should not work 8 hours. So it is this much. This is the law, and how you're going to communicate it. You may going to communicate through the TVT, like any poster, any notice board. So these things also you need to mention in the legal register. Take these legal requirements and other requirements into account when establishing, implementing, maintaining, and continually improving its OHS management system. The organization shall maintain and retain documented information of its legal requirements and other requirements and shall ensure it is updated to reflect any changes. So you can make a documented information. How you can make, as I said, you can make a Excel sheet. In the Excel sheet, you can maintain all these requirements, and these requirements you need to update time by time. So recently there was a COVID law that everyone need to wear the mask. So that is a legal requirement. So that is a legal requirement to avoid any health issues. So it has affected the whole world, and it's affected the workers also in the work organization. Saying that, now note, it's saying that legal requirements and other requirements can result in risk and opportunities for the organization. As I said, planning action. The organization shall plan action to address the risk and opportunities, address legal requirements and other requirements, prepare for and respond to emergency situation. How you're going to respond to the emergency situation, how to integrate and implement the actions into the OHS management system, process, or other business processes. Once you identify the risk, and you're going to implement the control measure. How you're going to implement the control measure in the process or other business processes. Evaluate the effectiveness of these actions. So you have to evaluate the effectiveness of these actions also, these control measures, whether they are effective or not. The organization shall take into account the hierarchy of controls, C 8.1.2, and outputs from the OHS management system when planning to take actions. As you know that the hierarchy of controls is ERIC PD that you can implement, and what are the outputs from the OHS management system when planning to take action. When planning to its actions, organization shall consider best practices, technological options, and financial, operational, and business requirements. So when you are considering the control measures, what are the best practices? If you will compare to your organization, like let's say that you are working in a construction company. If you will compare some of the best construction companies, what are the control measures they have implemented? If you visit their company website, they will post some like control measures, how they are communicating with the people. These are the best practices that you can also implement in your organization to control the hazards. Technologies, options also can be considered. Financial, definitely you need the financial support. Operational and business requirements. So these you can consider whenever you are implementing any control measures. Now, OHS 6.2, OHS objectives and planning to achieve them. What are the OHS objectives? Objectives, some people we say as a KPIs also, and how we gonna set the OHS objectives and how we gonna achieve them. Now the OHS objectives, the organization shall establish OHS objectives at relevant functions and levels in order to maintain and continually improve the OHS management system and OHS performance. So you have to establish, it is a requirement, it is a requirement that you have to establish the OHS objectives that is relevant to your functions, that is relevant to your business, your activities and services. So the OHS objective shall, when you are setting the OHS objective, it should be consistent with the OHS policies. Okay, it should not be different from your policy. Be measurable or capable of performance evaluation. It should be measurable. It means what you can measure, only the number you can measure. So whatever you are putting as objectives or targets, that should be measurable and that should be in a number. Take into account when you are setting the objectives and targets, you need to take into account of applicable requirements, the results of the assessment of risk and opportunities, the results of consultation with workers and representatives that need to be considered also. Be monitored. OHS objectives should be monitored. It should be communicated also. You have to communicate with your workers and it should be updated as appropriate. Now, how how you're going to set objectives and targets. So let me show you. I'll just give you one or two example that you can. Sorry. So in this one, I'll show you how we can. So this is the KPI number, KPI or objective number one, the number you have to put. There is the KPI number one. So for me, first KPI is training hours. Let's say that each employee, each staff should I receive 6 hours training. 6 hours training. So this is the objective. KPI number one. So this is my objective. So it's saying that 6 hours of training for each employee. So how I'm going to measure it? I'm going to measure it like quarterly. Like it's depend on you. You can measure it quarterly. You can measure it like every 3 months, or sorry, quarterly, half yearly, or yearly. It's depend on you. Let's say that I'm monitoring is quarterly. Quarter one. So I will put it here. Quarter one. There's the quarter two. Then I have quarter three. I have quarter four. So each staff should receive 6 hours of training every year. So every year. So 1 year, in a 1 year, I have to make sure that each of the staff, they should receive 6 hours of training. So 6 hours, I have to divide it in 4. So let's say that 1.5. The quarter one, when I will check for each employee, so I have to make sure that each employee, they have received 1.5 hours of training. So if person achieved 1.5 hours of training, then yes. Objective achieved? Yes. If the person, they didn't receive 1.5 hours of training in quarter one, then I have to put the same one, no. Now, when you are putting the no, you have to give the justification. Separately, you need to make one Excel sheet or another sheet. There you have to put the justification. Which of the KPIs you didn't able to, let's say that KPI 1, I wasn't able to achieve that one. Why I wasn't able to achieve that one? Because shortage of staff, because the shortage of trainer, because the shortage of because the staff was sick. So what was the reason? So those reason you have to put in that. If there is any specific reason, is that what is the control measure and what is your action? That action you need to put. So whenever the audit is there, that time you have to show the evidence why you are not able to achieve your KPIs. So that you have to put. So let's say that you achieve, yes. Quarter two also achieved, yes. Quarter two, third also achieved, sorry, yes. And four also, yes. So in this way, you have to maintain your KPI. KPI 1, KPI 2, KPI 3, KPI 4. You have to decide that how many KPIs you want to make it. Okay. So let's say that it is 1.5 hour, 5 hour, 1.5, 1.5, 1.5. So it is total 6 hours. So I can say that, so every year, person, they receive 6 hours of training. So it is my KPI. Okay. So this is the KPI. In this way, you will set your KPIs. Okay. So it is saying that consistent with the OHS policy, be measurable. How you can measure? Only the number you can measure. Now number I have given. What is the number here? 6 hours. So 6 hours I can measure it. So it should be like this. After that, be monitored. How you can monitor? Through the training records. Be communicated. How you can communicate? These KPIs you can communicate through the TBT, through the notice board, that you can communicate, and updated as appropriate. It should not be happen that every year you are making the same type of KPI. Once you achieve the KPI, if there is any risk also, if there is any hazard also, that hazard and risk also you can make as objectives, your targets, to work on that. So that can be your KPI also. Your objectives and targets could be. So I hope it's clear how you're gonna set your objectives and targets. So once you will set your objective or target, 6.2.2 is saying that you should have a plan to achieve those targets. How you're gonna achieve them? When planning how to achieve its objectives and target, the organization shall determine what will be done, what you're gonna do, what resources will be required, who will be responsible, when it will be completed, how the results will be evaluated, including indicators for monitoring, how the actions to achieve OHS objectives will be integrated into the organization business process. So all these things you need to consider. The organization shall maintain and retain documented information on the OHS objectives, plans to achieve them. So once you will set the objectives, the 6.2.1, then you have planning to achieve those objectives. Now, how you can make a plan, I'll show you now. Okay. The same way, here you will put the KPI number. Which number of KPI you are planning to run? KPI 1. So let's say that this is my KPI 1. So this is my KPI. So which is my KPI 1? It is, I will take the same example. It's saying that each staff should receive 6 hours of training every year. So this is my KPI. Okay. So it's saying that when we are making a plan, what will be done? Means how to done, what you're going to achieve this KPI. Okay. How to achieve. How to achieve. Okay. Second column, what resources you need. Resources required. Resources need. Then who will be responsible? Who will monitor these KPI? By who? You can write in your way also. When it will completed, status, timeline. So it is a yearly one, so that you can put yearly. Okay. So let's say that my one of the KPI is each staff should receive 6 hours of training every year. That is my KPI. Now how to achieve this one? So I have the training plan. So training will be delivered every month. Every month, one of the option. After then, through TBT, on job training, and emergency communication, and could be other ways also that you can use. Now, it's saying that resources. What are the resources you need? You need the time. So time also is the resource that you need from the worker. After that, what you need? You need the trainer. Maybe you need the training material. Maybe you need like poster, LCDs, or TV displays, etc. By who? Who is responsible? HSE officer, supervisor, and manager. Okay, so these person could be responsible. Now the timeline, when you're going to complete these things. So for all these things, you can put one timeline. If you are going to measure it quarterly, then quarter 1, Q1, you're going to measure 1.5 hours. Then you have the Q2 timeline, then Q3, then Q4. If you are measuring quarterly, if you are measuring yearly, then end of year. End of year. So in this way, you have to make a plan to achieve your KPIs. So for the each KPI, you need to put the plan. KPI 1, KPI 2, the same way you have to maintain the document to achieve the KPIs. I hope it is clear how you're gonna set the objectives and targets or KPIs and how you're gonna make a plan to achieve them. So that was the clause number 6. The clause number 6 was mainly focused on identify the risk and hazards, the control measures, how you're going to identify them, what are the things you need to consider. Once you identify, you need to put the proper control measures. After that, set the objectives and targets. Once you will set the objective and targets, you have to set the plan, how you're going to achieve them. After that, we have the clause number 7, which is specifically talking about the support. So support for what? Support for business. So 7.1, clause number 7.1, it's talking about the resources. The organization shall determine and provide the resources needed for the establishment, implementation, maintenance, and continual improvement of the OHS management system. So what are the resources that OHS management system need for the implementation, updation, and continual improvement? That resources we need to provide it. So the competence, that is also one of the resource. So the organization shall determine the necessary competence of the worker that affects or can affect its OHS performance. So when you are hiring any staff for the particular kind of job, or that staff is going to work on a particular machinery or any equipment, you need to consider those things also, because the workers can affect the work also and can introduce the risk also. So you need to check the competency of the worker when you are hiring them. Ensure that workers are competent, including the ability to identify hazards on the basis of appropriate education, training, or experience. So you have to consider education, training, and experience, or other any extra training that they required to perform the task safely. Then, where applicable, take actions to acquire, maintain, and necessary competence, and evaluate the effectiveness of the actions taken. So where applicable, take actions to acquire and maintain the necessary competence. So where you cannot get the competency through the recruitment, you have to take the action by on-job training, induction training, TBT, other trainings, or any legal trainings. That competency need to be maintained to avoid any issues, health and safety risk. Retain appropriate documented information as evidence of competence. When you are recruiting your employee, their competency you need to decide how competent they are. Their experience, their training, their education, all those things need to be maintained as a file with the HR also, with the HSE officer also, or any safety department that should be maintained. As per those record, you have to evaluate their competency and you have to decide the training that they required. Okay. Now it's saying that note applicable actions can include, for example, the provision of training to the the mentoring of or the reassignment of currently employed persons, or the hiring or contracting of competent persons. Then we have clause number 7.3, which is specifically talking about the awareness. Workers shall be made aware of. It means the communication that we require. The worker should be aware of OHS policies and OHS objectives that should be communicated, their contribution to the effectiveness of the OHS management system, including the benefits of improved OHS performance, how they're gonna affect the OHS management system and how they can improve the OHS management system. That need to be communicated also. The implications and potential consequences of not conforming to the OHS management system requirements, incident and outcomes of investigation that are relevant to them, that need to be communicated also, and they should be aware. Hazards related to the task, OHS risk, actions determined that they are relevant to them, that need to be communicated also, and they should be aware. The ability to remove themselves from work situation that they consider present an imminent and serious danger to their life or health, as well as the arrangements for protecting them from undue consequences for doing so. So they should be aware that, and you need to communicate that if they feel unsafe in any work conditions or any situation, they have the full right to remove themselves from that situation and any work environment. So these things you need to be communicate also. Now the communication. Clause number 7.4 and 7.4.1 general. The organization shall establish. Shall establish means you should have a SOP or you should have a documented procedure to establish, implement, and maintain the process needed for the internal and external communication relevant to the OHS management system, including determining. So you should have the process to communicate the internal and the external requirements. On what it will be communicated. When you are making the process SOP, you need to mention that what will be communicated, when you're going to communicate, and with whom to communicate. Internally among the various levels and function of the organizations when you are communicating internal people, and externally when you are communicating with the contractors, visitors to the workplace, and among other interested parties. And how you're going to communicate. Maybe you're going to communicate through the notice board, through the TBT, through the email, through the policies, through the salary slip. How you're going to communicate, that you need to mention. The organization shall take into account diversity aspects, gender, language, culture, literacy, disability when considering its communication needs. When you are communicating with the people, do not just communicate only one language. Try to communicate in different language. Because when you have the people from the different religion, different countries, they may not understand only the English. So you have to choose the different way of communication, language, posters, and different other things. The organization shall ensure that the views of external interested parties are considered in establishing its communication process. So when you are establishing communication process, you need to check the external interested parties also, like legal departments, any contractors, suppliers, certification bodies. Those also need to be considered in the process. When establishing its communication process, the organization shall take into account its legal requirements also and other requirements. So legal requirements also you need to consider in the process. Ensure that the OHS information to be communicated to is consistent with information generated within the OHS management system and is reliable. That you need to make sure. The organization shall respond to relevant communication on its OHS management system. The organization shall retain documented information as evidence of its communication as appropriate. So when you are communicating with the people, internal or external, you need to keep the evidence of communication. If you are communicating through the email, copy that email and keep it in the folder as a soft copy or hard copy, whatever you like. Sorry, just a moment. After that, we have the internal communication. The organization shall internally communicate information relevant to OHS management system among the various levels and function of the organization, including changes to the OHS management system as appropriate. So internally, these things need to be communicated. Ensure its communication process enable workers to contribute to continual improvement when you are communicating any information to the workers internally. After that, external communication. The organization shall externally communicate information relevant to the OHS management system as established by the organization communication process and taking into account its legal requirements and other requirements when you are communicating with the people externally. It was a clause number 7.4. Now we will start clause number 7.5, which is purely talking about documentation process. Sorry. So 7.5.1 subclause general, the organization OHS management system shall include documented information required by this documented. So you should have a documented information. You can create a SOP. Documented information determined by the organization as being necessary for the effectiveness of the OHS management system. Note, the extent of documented information for an OHS management system can differ from one organization to another. It's not like that all the organization they have the same documentation process. That could be the different. It purely depends on the size, need, complexity, and competence of workers when they are preparing any documented process. Now, creating and updating. When you are creating any document and updating any document. So when creating and updating documented information, the organization shall ensure appropriate identification and description, example, title, date, author, and reference number. Okay. When you are creating any document, any information that you are using, and you have any paper that you are using as a reference or any document, so that particular document should have a title, that should have a date, the author as a company, and the reference number also. So it is a requirement. The format, what is the format that you are using? Example, language, software version, graphic and media, paper or electronic, review and approval for suitability and adequacy. When you're going to review that document, maybe you are creating one SOP. When you're going to review that one, who's going to approve that SOP? And is it suitable, is adequate or not? So these things also need to be included in the document whenever you are creating any document and updating. Now, the control of documented information. Whenever you are creating and updating any document, that document should be controlled also. Documented information required by OHS management system and by this document shall be controlled to ensure it is available and suitable for use where and when it is needed. It is adequately protected. You have to protect your document from loss of confidentiality, improper use, or loss of integrity. There are so many potential documents that can be misused, like the bank account details documents, contractor details documents, any service agreement documents. So those documents should be protected also. For the control of documented information, the organization shall address the following activities as applicable: distribution, access, retrieval, and use. When you are distributing, who has the access, retrieval, and use? These should be maintained. Storage and preservation, including preservation of legibility, control of change, who can control? Retention and disposition. So whatever the document you are creating, that should has a particular retention period. What is the retention period that document? Suppose one of the documents you have the audit report. So audit report, when you are preparing that document, how long you will keep it? That is a retention period. Let's say that today I'm conducting one audit and that document I will keep for next 3 years. So that is the retention period for that particular document. So as per these information, like this, you have to create the retention period for all documents. So it is the requirement. And when you're going to dispose it and how you're going to dispose it, that process also need to be included in the documented information. Documented information of external origin determined by the organization to be necessary for the planning and operation of OHS management system shall be identified as appropriate and controlled. Note, access can imply a decision regarding the permission to view the documented information only or the permission and the authority to view change the documented information. Access to relevant documented information includes access by workers and where they exist workers representative. So only the particular people and the employees, they should have the access to relevant document. So that's all for the clause number 7. And that's all for today training. And next training, I will start close number 8, which is operational planning and control. So that's all for today training. I hope you like this video and the information which I have shared with you so far. And would like to request that please do not forget to subscribe my channel and like my videos. And please do share with your friends and colleagues as well. And please show your support so I can bring you some important content and helpful trainings also in the future. So thank you so much. See you in the next video.